Good afternoon, members of the press and friends, allies, supporters, champions of ours. My name is Dale Ewert. I'm the Executive Vice President of the Florida region of 1199. We represent 25,000 healthcare workers around the state in 30 hospitals and 75 nursing homes. We have worked for 20 years to protect the staffing standards that the legislature, the bipartisan legislature in 2001 was foresighted enough to pass. There was a package of bills way back when that gave the industry some relief on tort, provided more money that the industry had needed, but most importantly, dramatically updated and frankly, the correct use of the word modernized staffing standards for nursing homes, dramatically increased the level of nursing care that nursing home residents were entitled to receive, almost doubling it from 1.7 hours of care a day, which is among the lowest in the nation, to 2.9. Why did we do that 20 years ago? We did it because the level of care and harm to nursing home residents in Florida was shameful. And as a consequence, nursing homes were getting sued right and left and losing large judgments to the families of nursing home residents who were harmed. After the increase in staffing in 2001, what we saw was what we hoped we would see. We saw a dramatic improvement in the quality of care in Florida nursing homes. Not everywhere that advocates for residents and advocates for workers would like to see, but a dramatic improvement and a really good first start. Unfortunately, the nursing home industry, and I think I can say this without qualification, every legislative session in the succeeding years has attempted to delay, water down, or roll back those standards. And sadly enough, they succeeded this year in largely doing that, rolling back CNA staffing standards, which they'd already rolled back once from where they should have been at 2.9 to 2.5, and now have rolled it back permanently to 2.0. I'm going to call on others who can go into some detail, and we'll have questions and answers to get into some of the weeds on this. But this is a bait and switch. This is not going to add any hours of care to any nursing home resident. This is not going to give them the opportunity to get specialist care that was denied to them. This is simply going to allow nursing homes to cut back on the personal care, the nursing care that CNAs provide, and which is essential to quality care in Florida nursing homes. It is a shame that the legislature has done this favor for a rapacious, greedy, profit-driven industry that frankly does not deserve that kind of support and that kind of gifts from our legislature. Having set that up, I'm going to turn it over to Coy, who is going to introduce one of our champions in the legislature. And then we have a number of other speakers that we'll get to in turn who can talk more about this. Coy?
Thank you so much, Dale. Before I I have the amazing honor of introducing not only a friend, but one amazing legislator. My name's Coy Jones. I serve as a political coordinator for 1199 SEIU. My region covers the entire I-4 corridor and the entire west coast of the state of Florida. Today, you are going to be joined, as Dale spoke to, Representative Carlos Guillermo Smith. We will also be joined today by our friends AARP, Zane Smith. And we also have two amazing members that will speak to why this past session was so important and how it will impact us. And that's Blanche Norwood, who is a current CNA, and Jennifer Montague, who's a former RN and a retiree here in the state of Florida. So this session, as Dale spoke to you, was a challenge, but we started this session actually being proactive around medical loss ratio legislation. And we worked really hard over the summer to meet with the minority offices. And we sat down with Rep. Smith, who was one of the champions for our medical loss ratio, which was House Bill 1237. Tell me if I'm right. I think it's 1237. Yes, Carlos played a huge role in not only champion that legislation, but I think he was the catalyst to the nursing home accountability and that conversation even being thought of and being moved early on in the session. We know that Rep. Smith has definitely been a champion for us way before he had a representative before his name, and he continues to be for 1199 and for healthcare workers in general across the state and specifically in Central Florida. And we look forward to working with you again this summer. And we know you are not a friend to the nursing home industry. And we know that's because you've been out there fighting for us. So we will continue to support you like you've always been supporting us. So I'm going to give you the floor to just speak to the session, where we landed, where we didn't land, and how you think we're going to be moving forward.
Sure. Well, thank you so much, Coy. Thank you to 1199 SEIU and so many other stakeholders that we have here as part of this discussion. And certainly that includes AARP. So I'm glad to see that Zane is here as well. I think it's important that before we talk about the really bad staffing bill that passed 1239, and yes, Coy, you are correct. It was House Bill 1237 was the nursing home accountability bill that we introduced with Senator Gibson that actually did see some success this session, where some of these provisions did become law, namely the provision in 1237 that requires for nursing homes to submit audited financial reporting to the state of Florida. This is a very critical step forward towards transparency for our nursing homes, which everyone knows receives $4 billion with a B, $4 billion in Florida taxpayer money every single year, and is not often, or really very rarely, transparent on how those dollars are spent or accountable to how those dollars are spent to take care of our most vulnerable. So the required financial auditing is an important step of transparency that will get us to accountability in the future. Of course, there was also the huge win of being able to require through the language in the budget proviso that the rate increase that was given to nursing homes this legislative session would be required to be used to raise the minimum wage immediately for our CNAs in our nursing homes to $15 per hour, which is a tremendous victory and very, very important. Let's talk about House Bill 1239, because this bill is really bad public policy and certainly does not align with how Florida is supposed to be prioritizing the health and safety of our seniors. There's a lot of things that this bill is, and there's a lot of things that this bill is not. Let's start with talking about what it is. House Bill 1239 will slash by 20% the required bedside hours that CNAs provide to our nursing home residents on average every single day. Specifically in the bill language and in law, it diminishes and waters down the existing staffing minimum of 2.5 hours on average per day down to 2 hours. Why is that happening? They call this legislation a modernization of our staffing standards. However, CNAs provide bedside care related to daily life activities. They are providing basic but crucial care like helping a resident brush their teeth, take a shower, use the restroom, help move them around in the bed to avoid bed sores, help them get dressed, change a diaper if need be. These are critical services that have not been impacted at all by the modernization of technology. What it does do is it means that our nursing home residents are going to be spending less time every single day with the CNAs that they depend on so greatly to be able to engage in these daily life activities. Now, that doesn't mean that they are required to reduce the number of hours of bedside care, but we do know that there are two different types of nursing homes in the state of Florida. Those that are driven by a mission to provide high quality nursing home care to our seniors and that are not profit driven. Those nursing homes will not change their daily practice. They will continue to staff well above the minimum staffing standard required by law, and nothing will change. Then there's the other type of nursing home that is not mission driven, that is driven by profits, that already today staffs to the bare minimum statutory staffing standard. And immediately when this bill becomes law, we fear that they will immediately slash their staffing minimums for their nursing home residents so that they can receive more profits, so that they can be more profitable as an entity and they can protect the profitability of their nursing home. And this is not necessarily just a theory. In the staff analysis of this legislation, we were able to see specific information that told us exactly what the impact of the bill will be. And I quote from the staff analysis: "The bill may have a positive fiscal impact on nursing homes resulting from the reduction in the number of hours of required CNA direct care." So unfortunately, what we see here is a bill that is a legislative favor to a very influential special interest in Tallahassee, which is the for-profit nursing home industry. Now, I told you what this bill is. Let me tell you what it is not. This bill that permanently reduces the minimum staffing standards and bedside care being provided to our nursing home residents is not Florida putting seniors first. We know that Governor DeSantis has led with the seniors first message throughout the pandemic. It has become a slogan, a tagline, a bumper sticker, a poster during his multiple press conferences throughout the pandemic. This bill is the exact opposite of putting seniors first. And that is why we call on Governor Ron DeSantis to veto this legislation that goes against his so-called prioritization of putting our seniors first, so that we can continue to make sure, especially for those profit-driven nursing homes that are driven mostly by their stakeholder interests, that they continue to meet the current minimum standards that are already weak in the first place and should be raised from the start. And that's why we urge him to veto this legislation. So thank you for including me as part of the conversation. And I guess we're ready for our next speaker.
Thank you, Representative Guillermo Smith. And again, thank you for your championing being our champion of workers and of seniors. Want to introduce our next speaker, another champion for seniors, the legislative director for the AARP, as I think everyone knows, the nation's largest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to empowering those of us over 50 to choose how we want to live and to advocate for our interests. And so next up, Zane Smith.
Hey, thank you, Dale, and thank you, Representative Smith, for your excellent rendition of what this is and isn't, because you were absolutely spot on. What I feel like we can add in terms of AARP is we obviously represent nearly 3 million AARP members in Florida, 38 million AARP members across the country. The issue of minimum nursing staffing standards in nursing homes is not just an issue here in Florida. It's an issue across the country in every state and also at the federal level. The eyes of the country are watching what Florida does right now. I think we heard a lot of information throughout the process when this bill was moving that was either a misdirection, a red herring, or meant or intended to mislead. I would like to set some of that straight. We heard often that this is just a minimum. So what's the big deal if we reduce this minimum number? Well, the big deal is exactly what we fear, is that the quality of care in facilities will degrade insignificantly. 30 minutes is a long time to someone who takes an hour to get up, to get to the bathroom, to get clean, and to get back in their chair or in their bed. A minimum is meant to be a guidepost, and I would challenge why the nursing home industry, specifically the for-profit nursing home industry, doesn't want to set a minimum at actually a higher level. If they take pride in the services they provide, the quality of care for their residents, they should want to not only raise the minimum, but bolster it with these other positions that are critical to the care of the resident. And that's not what we're seeing here. We also heard during debate, during discussions, during testimony, that there's a multitude of states that don't have minimum nursing staffing standards. And while that's true, if you look at the ranking of states, those that don't have minimums rank in the lowest quality of care across the board. I think one particular example we were given time and time again is that Virginia, who doesn't have a minimum nursing staffing standard, is somehow the gold standard that Florida should be following. Well, the state of Virginia is actually fighting to implement minimum nursing staffing standards because their facilities are in such bad shape when it comes to quality of care. That's the side of the story you didn't hear from people pushing to lower the minimums. At AARP, we are concerned with the residents, not only the current residents, people who may become residents in nursing homes, and obviously the friends and family and loved ones of individuals that are currently in these facilities. When we have a workforce shortage, which we definitely do in Florida and across the country, this bill is not addressing that. This bill is in no way making the workforce shortage any better. We actually feel that it's going to make it worse, because what we've done with this piece of legislation is require the CNAs that are in these facilities to do the same amount of work with less time. We're actually going to have burnout at a higher rate. We're going to have fewer CNAs wanting to do a massive amount of work that they're required to do with smaller amounts of time. Ultimately, during this process, both publicly and behind closed doors and meetings with sponsors of this legislation, we, along with SEIU, offered 2 pages worth of alternatives that would actually address the workforce issue, none of which were contained in an amendment, none of which were contained in the language of the legislation that passed, none of which were actually entertained by anyone making decisions on this legislation. If Florida wanted to get serious about addressing the workforce, addressing our healthcare heroes, and putting seniors first, we would be looking at these alternatives, both short and long term. Unfortunately, that was not the desire of the for-profit nursing home industry and others who were behind not only the writing of this legislation, but the movement of this legislation. It's our hope at AARP that we take a step back as a state of Florida, let other issues that we've passed, the raising of the minimum wage. Don't forget, last year we passed the personal care attendant bill, which is a direct aim at trying to help ease the workforce issue in these facilities. We haven't even let this play out yet to see how it works. So at AARP, we implore the governor to veto this legislation, put seniors first, let Florida assess what's going to be best when it comes to the minimum nursing staffing standards. And let's get all the stakeholders at the table, not for the first meeting, but for the entire discussion. Let the people who are on the front lines help in the decision-making of what's best for resident care. And then we move forward with a package or a bill that actually addresses the issues from all aspects, not just after harm has occurred so trial lawyers can go sue more, not after harm's occurred so the nursing homes can try to waive responsibility and liability. We saw a few different bills that failed to even get a committee hearing or only had one hearing, one of which was Representative Smith's bill 1237. We also had a Senate bill 1734 that could have helped nursing home residents, but it never got past a single committee hearing. So there are options out there that would improve the workforce issue, improve the quality of care, but we've got to make those a priority for the decision makers in Tallahassee. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Zane. I'm going to turn next to Blanche Norwood. Blanche is a CNA employed at Treasure Isle Care Center. Blanche has, I won't out her or myself by how long we've known each other and how long she's been in a caregiver in a nursing home, but let's just say for decades. And Blanche is going to talk about what the realities of working in a nursing home as a CNA are like. Blanche.
Good afternoon. My name is Blanche Norwood. I am a long-term care worker for 40 plus years. And in the reduction of these hours, if it should go into effect, it would greatly impact our seniors because of the fact that we have seniors that require a lot of help. And they require feeding, changing, walking, repositioning. And if these hours are dropped, we're going to lose a lot of help in the nursing homes because the staffing level has dropped. That means we have less people that are able to do this work, and we just will not have the time. These people are valuable people in the society. They're our moms, our fathers, the physicians, the lawyers, whatever they were in life, and they deserve to be treated with the greatest amount of dignity and respect. And then we're asking that other people in other departments, such as the rehab therapists and activities department, help with these residents. But what are they going to do? Are they going to take them to the bathroom? Are they going to change your soil sheet? Are they going to write letters for them? What are they going to do? We need help. This bill is very bad. And I just cannot imagine the devastation that will go into the nursing home facility if this takes effect, because we're going to have more ulcers. We're going to have more people being put into the hospitals because we're not able to do all of this work. We need to remain at least at what we are now. That's all I can say. I don't understand how we're to be expected to do all of this work, because I personally want to treat every resident as if they're my family member, because that's what they deserve. We are a lot of them family members because some of them don't have anybody to come but us. And if they're depending on us, how can we deliver what they need?
Thank you so much, Blanche. We have one more speaker I'm going to call on, and then there'll be an opportunity for questions and answers. We have with us, as Coy had mentioned, an 1199 union retiree, former registered nurse, Jennifer Montague. Jennifer, go ahead.
Jennifer, you have to unmute yourself.
Okay, sorry. Good afternoon. My name is Jennifer Montague. I worked for 35 years in the healthcare industry. I retired in 2011. In taking care of the elderly and the frail patient, you have to many times move slowly to keep from hurting them. The standard of care needs to be maintained. I and many of my friends are of age, and so I had worry that we are going to be neglected. In this legislation should not be signed into law. It is going to be less of a bill. Please do not sign this bill. Thank you very much. I'm asking him, Governor DeSantis not to sign this into law. This is going to be very unfair to our frail members and our elderly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. And so we've talked mostly about our concerns and fears about the recently passed legislation on staffing. Representative Smith has also reminded us there are a couple of things that the legislature did in terms of worker wages and transparency, which were steps in the right direction. So I want to acknowledge the good things as well, but I think everyone on this call would agree that the danger of the change to staffing is significant and serious. And while we certainly appreciate moves towards financial accountability and higher wages for caregivers, that in no way offsets the destructive nature of this bill. It's going to result in real harm to residents and also, frankly, to staff who will be forced to do more unassisted lifts and will drive up the rate of what's already one of the most dangerous occupations in the country, that of a CNA in a nursing home. So let me ask if there are any questions that we can, amongst us, try to answer.
Hi, this is Joe Burns. I'm a reporter with WMFE, the NPR station in Orlando. My question, it could be for Zane, but I would welcome someone from the union addressing it as well. What actions are you taking? What are you doing to try to convince the governor to veto the bill?
Sure, I can take, I'll take this one and then hand it over. So what we're doing, we've met with his health policy staff, provided materials to support our position on why minimum nursing staffing standards are critical to the quality of care and how they're directly tied to quality of care. We've also provided research materials from a nonpartisan group that looks at all 50 states and ranks the state's quality of care based on a number of factors, and I'm happy to provide you guys the same report as well. But it basically ranks, and right now, Florida is ranked in the top 5. We actually have the best in terms of minimum nursing staffing standard outcomes tied to quality of care. As soon as, if Governor DeSantis signs this, we drop into the top 15 at best automatically. And that's just the immediate drop we will have in terms of ranking across the country. Who knows what it'll play out to be in the long run, right? And so I'll share that report with you. Obviously, public facing, we've launched television ads, we've launched digital media ads. Our national office has seen this as such a massive issue, not just for Florida, but because the country is watching what Florida is doing. Our chief executive officer in Washington, D.C. has written an op-ed, and it will be issued both in national papers and here in Florida. And when our chief executive officer gets involved, that's a pretty serious position by AARP. Like I said, we represent 38 million members across the country, all of which are voters, all of which participate heavily in elections. This is an election year. Obviously, in 2 more years, when we have another presidential race, there's going to be implications. And one of the things AARP will do is remind voters, not only in Florida, but across the country, how certain people act on issues that are of primary importance to our members. And this is one of our top priorities. So those are the kind of things we've been doing. And we're driving calls. We're driving calls to the governor's office, emails to the governor's office asking that he veto this legislation. So it's a full-on campaign right now, but I'll make sure that you guys get those reports.
Yeah, please do. I really look forward to seeing that report. Jamie, please make sure she has my email.
Joe, let me just add briefly, we're also working with AARP to drive those calls to the governor. If it turns out that he signs it, I can tell you that it will be a major priority of our members and our organization to document the changes in both staffing and care, and to hold every nursing home that decides to drop its staffing because they're allowed to do it, and every legislator that supported this, we're going to hold them accountable because we don't think the harm here is hypothetical. We think it's going to be real, and we do not intend. Took us 5 years of hard work back when we reached that momentous staffing bill back in 2001. And so this isn't over, regardless of what he does. I want to make just one other real quick point. Zane was talking about correctly about the need to bring in all the stakeholders and talk to everyone. That's exactly what happened when we did this years ago. There was a task force that was set up by the Lieutenant Governor, Frank Brogan, not a liberal. Jeb Bush was the governor, not a liberal. That task force listened to experts, traveled the state, held public hearings, which were robustly attended. Nursing home operators came, academics came, workers came, and what came out of that was the product of a thoughtful examination of testimony and interest and research. And what has come out of this is just frankly naked favor trading by an industry that has some money to throw around. Other questions? Not seeing or hearing anything else. I hope, for follow-up, if things occur to you, I think you know how to reach the folks at AARP. I think you also know how to reach Ed. If you need something from 1199, we will do whatever we can to get you answers to questions. But we appreciate your time and your interest. And if there's nothing else, Coy, is there anything else we need to do?
No, I think that's it. No other questions. Appreciate you all taking the time out today.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
And thanks especially to Zane and to Representative Smith and to Blanche and to Jennifer for taking your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.